Well, Ms. Francis, how are you?
Good, thank you.
Could you please state your full name and spell it for the court reporter?
Yes, my name is Heather Francis, Heatherfrancis.
Ms. Francis, how are you employed?
I'm employed as a firearm and toolmark examiner at the Southwestern Institute of Forensic Sciences. It's also known as SWIFT's, or the Dallas County Crime Lab.
And how long have you been a firearm and toolmark examiner?
I have been a firearm and toolmark examiner since January of 2002, so about 16 and a half years.
And how long have you been with Swiss?
Same amount of time.
And in your capacity as a firearm and toolmark examiner, what are your duties?
My duties primarily are to examine firearms for functionality and safety and determine if a particular firearm fired ammunition components such as cartridge cases or bullets.
Can you please describe for the court your education and your experience, qualifications for what you do?
Yes, I have a bachelor's degree in physics that I acquired in 1994. I have a training program that I completed prior to doing any independent casework at SWIFT's that was hosted by the Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, Firearms, and Explosives. I participate in yearly proficiency tests, which I have successfully passed since January of 2002.
And have you performed analyses in firearm and toolmark examination prior to this one?
Yes.
On few or many occasions?
Many.
And have you testified in court as an expert witness in this field?
I have.
On few or many occasions?
Many.
Now, you actually did a few things in this particular case, is that right?
I did.
And specifically lab number IFS-17-07795 as it pertains to complainant Jordan Javon Edwards, is that right?
I did. May I look at my report and notes? Thank you.
You may. Go ahead. So for the record, you conducted a firearm analysis under request 0009, is that right?
Yes.
You also conducted a range of fire analysis under request number 0010,
Yes, I did.
and you also conducted another firearms analysis under request 0019.
Correct.
For the record, what is a range of fire analysis? What are you doing there?
Typically, with range of fire analysis, it's an examination to determine the distance between the muzzle or the very end of a firearm and the item that was struck by a bullet. For this case, however, in this range of fire analysis, I examined the hair from the autopsy that was collected at the autopsy of Jordan Javon Edwards to determine if there was gunpowder present.
Okay, and since we're already there, what were the results of that particular analysis, the range of fire analysis, with regard to the hair from the autopsy?
I examined the hair microscopically to determine if there was any gunpowder present, and I determined there was no gunpowder present.
Okay. Is the underlying scientific theory with regard to firearms and toolmark examination valid?
Yes.
And is the technique applying the theory valid?
Yes.
All right, going back to your first firearms analysis under request 0009, what evidence was submitted to you to conduct that particular examination?
The evidence submitted by the Dallas County Sheriff's Office included, for firearms identification, included 4 fired Federal Brand .223 Remington caliber cartridge cases, 1 magazine, 10 unfired Federal brand .223 Remington caliber cartridges, 1 Modern Outfitters .223 Remington caliber semi-automatic rifle, 2 metal fragments, 4 Federal brand .40 S&W or Smith & Wesson caliber fired cartridge cases, and 7 Remington brand 9mm Luger caliber fired cartridge cases, and 1 Privy PRVI Partisan PARTISAN brand 9mm Luger caliber fired cartridge case. Evidence submitted that I received from the medical examiner were, other than the hair from autopsy, were 1 fired bullet jacket fragment, an additional 4 fired bullet jacket fragments, and 8 lead fragments.
And can you please describe the manner in which, or the process by which you conduct the firearms analysis?
Sure. The firearm or the rifle was examined for functionality and determined to be functional. So test fires were made using submitted ammunition. Those test fires were compared to each other microscopically to ensure that the tool marks from the firearm were imparted to those fired cartridge cases or fired bullets, and that they were repeating. Then the appropriate caliber fired cartridge cases, the .223 Remington caliber fired cartridge cases, were compared to a test fire using a comparison microscope, and they were compared microscopically using the same lighting and magnification to determine if the tool marks observed during the comparison of the known standards were repeating to the question cartridge cases. The same sort of side-by-side comparison was performed on the cartridge cases of the same caliber, but not the 9mm cartridge cases were compared microscopically to each other, and then the .40 caliber cartridge cases were compared microscopically to each other. They were not compared to any of the test fires because they're different calibers or different class characteristics. The 1 fired bullet jacket fragment from autopsy was examined to determine if there were tool marks present, and because there were, it was compared to the test fired bullet from the rifle. The other bullet jacket fragments and the 8 lead fragments that were from autopsy were determined to be unsuitable for comparisons.
So with regard specifically to the 4 fired cartridge cases, the .223s, what were your conclusions as it pertains specifically to those?
I determined that those 4 fired .223 Remington caliber cartridge cases were fired by the submitted rifle.
Okay, how about the 4 .40 caliber fired cartridge cases?
The 4 .40 caliber or .40 S&W caliber fired cartridge cases were all determined to be fired by the same unknown firearm.
And when you say same unknown firearm, there was no firearm for you to compare it to?
Correct.
How about the...
I'm sorry, Your Honor. Don't hold me in contempt, please.
Well, there's a procedure and a penalty in this court for that. I'll discuss it with you after.
Bring donuts.
Yes, ma'am.
No, I will.
And we judge, too.
50 donuts, Your Honor.
Go ahead.
How about the 8 fired 9mm cartridge cases?
The 8 9mm Luger caliber fired cartridge cases were all identified as having been fired by the same unknown firearm.
Okay, and how about the evidence from the autopsy?
The item that's listed as one fired bullet jacket fragment from autopsy was identified as having been fired by the submitted rifle. The other items listed as 4 fired bullet jacket fragments from autopsy and the 8 lead fragments from autopsy were determined to be unsuitable for comparisons.
Okay. Any other conclusions from request number 0009 that needs to be pointed out at this point in time?
The items listed as 2 metal fragments that were submitted by the Dallas County Sheriff's Office were also unsuitable for microscopic comparisons.
After your analysis is complete, does it go through some kind of technical review process?
It does. It goes through when my analysis is complete, the items that are available for microscopic comparisons are passed on to another examiner for verification. This is done in a blind fashion, meaning the other examiner does not know what my conclusions are. The other examiner will come to her own conclusions and determine, then we'll compare my conclusions with her conclusions, and if they are the same, then that's a good thing. If they're different, then more comparisons are needed and a reconciliation is written for that type of thing. After that verification process, then the reports are written and all the notes are passed on to that verifier, and they're technically reviewed to ensure that everything that's written in the report is supported by the notes, and all the I's are dotted, the T's are crossed as best to our ability, and that everything that can be is page numbered and easily referenced.
And what were the results of that process? Was it the same?
Because you have a report, yes, everything was technically reviewed and signed off.
Okay. So let's move on to the next firearm analysis that you conducted. And just for the record, the first firearm analysis was, the report date is May 16, 2017, is that correct?
Yes.
Let's move on to request number 0019 with the report date of February 14, 2018. What was the purpose of that analysis?
During the first analysis, there was a request to submit cartridge cases to the NIBIN program, which is the National Integrated Ballistic Information Network. It's a database for cartridge case image entries to potentially link scenes that weren't previously thought to have any relation at all. We at Swifts do not have the hardware in our laboratory for NIBIN entry, so those cartridge cases, a representative of those cartridge cases, were sent to the ATF, the Association of Firearms, the Alcohol, Tobacco, Firearms, and Explosives Laboratory in Walnut Creek, California, for entry into the NIBIN database. The results of that were issued to me in an email stating that a couple of those items hit or potentially were linked to other cartridge cases that had been entered locally into the database. So when that occurs, a physical comparison of those items needs to be performed, not just identifying what you see on the screen. So the request 0019 is a result of potential NIBIN associations.
And so describe the analysis that you conducted under request 0019.
I received, let me see. Of all the items that were submitted under those case numbers, there were more items submitted than were represented by the cartridge cases that were sent off to NIBIN. If these cases had more cartridge cases that weren't initially entered into NIBIN, just everything from that particular case was sent over. It may have been related or the same caliber as the items that I examined initially in 0009, or it could have been additional stuff just from that particular case. Based on everything that was submitted, would you like me to go through everything that was submitted?
Yes, please.
Okay. In IFS-17-01146, which is listed first in the evidence submitted listing on request 0019.
Let me just interrupt you.
Okay.
How many items do you think you have currently? You don't have to count specifically, give me just a lengthy lots of pages.
There's 1.5 pages of evidence listing.
Is that going to be on?
Yes, sir.
How you doing?
It's going well.
Are you going to introduce what she's reading off of?
I'm going to introduce it for purposes of this hearing. The reason why I wanted to specify, Judge, is that we're going to be asking for a motion in limine with regards to the second report, because we're arguing that it's not relevant to what we're here for today.
Okay, well, I'll hear that later, but this report, I guess what I'm saying is I don't need her to read it off, give her an introduce it, and I can read it.
Yes.
Mr. Gill has a copy of that, right?
Yes, sir.
Probably. Why don't you go ahead and mark that and introduce it for record purposes if you haven't done so already. Let's get in.
Yes, sir. So the state would offer at this time states in 248, which is a copy of Ms. Francis' firearms analysis under lab number IFS-17-07795, request 0019.
Any objections, Mr. Gill, for purposes of this hearing?
Not for this hearing, Judge.
All right, it's admitted for purposes of this hearing. Let me take a look. Go ahead.
Yeah, so just to kind of put a bow on that, Ms. Francis, you did an analysis and you determined that some of these casings matched to some casings found at other crime scenes throughout Dallas. Is that safe to say?
Yes.
Okay. So we got a bunch of different casings, a bunch of different guns involved. Is it fair to say?
There were, out of everything that was submitted in request 19, there were 7 guns represented.
Were any of those from the 223 from the rifle?
From the submitted rifle, no. Those cartridge cases were not sent to NIBIN.
So it's, if I got this right, it's the cartridge cases that were found at the nursing home.
Correct, Your Honor. 9mm and .40 caliber.
Thank you.
Yes, sir. All right, so Ms. Francis, in all, again, you did 3 analysis in this case. Is there anything else other than requests 0009, 0010, and 0019 which you did in this case?
No, there's not.
Is your testimony this morning based upon your personal knowledge and examinations that you did in each of these test reports?
Yes.
Counsel, the witness.
Mr. Hill?
Thank you, Your Honor. Good morning, Ms. Francis.
Good morning.
If I can try to get this straight with you, first of all. Request 0009 pertains to your May 16th, 2017 report. Is that
Yes.
correct?
Yes, sir.
What does request number 0010 pertain to?
That pertains to the examination from the hair, or of the hair from autopsy, for the presence of gunpowder.
And then we just heard about 0019, and it is covered by your February 14th, 2018 report. Is that right?
Yes, sir.
Who did a trigger pull analysis on the firearm that was submitted to you?
I did.
What request is that under?
That's under request 0009.
And is that contained in a separate report?
No, sir, it is contained in the notes. It is not a reported, it's not something that we report in our reports.
You see your notes with regard to that done real quick.
I think I have a copy of it.
You can find it easier probably.
You don't mind, let's just keep it with you. I don't want to do that.
Okay.
It's all your handwriting, correct?
Yes.
It's not too bad.
I do it a lot.
What device created this particular profile?
We use something called Trigger Scan, and it is an automated device that we set up an arm into the back of the, I guess you could call it an anvil, is set against the front or the inside of the trigger guard. And then there's an arm that actuates when you press enter, and the arm pushes the trigger, and if the firearm is ready to fire, in a ready to fire mode, then the arm pushes the trigger until sear release. And that sensor on the arm measures and reports these things in a graph.
So there's some software that goes along with the
Yes.
trigger scan,
Mm-hmm.
and it creates this.
Yes.
And is that done while firing a live round, or is that done in the dry fire?
No, that's dry fire.
You noted in your report that there were, I believe, 4 copper jacket fragments submitted to you by the medical examiner's office?
Well, there were 5. This fired bullet jacket fragment. Or fired,
You referred to that as a bullet jacket in
Okay.
your report.
good, that's what it is.
Okay.
And 4 fired bullet jacket fragments. And then the 8 lead fragments.
Did you ever compare the jacket to the fragment to see if they were consistent?
To see if they matched,
Matched
like
or-
physically,
Yeah.
if they were from the same item. Let's see. No, I didn't.
Did you weigh the jacket and the fragments?
I weighed everything together, including the lead fragments, the bullet jacket, and the 4 fired bullet jacket fragments. And together, they totaled 20.3 grains.
And how does that compare to the weight of a fully intact projectile of this nature?
I don't know. I didn't weigh a fully intact bullet of that nature.
When you did the test firings on the firearm, did you do the test firing yourself?
I did.
And you recovered the fired projectiles yourself?
I
For
did.
comparison purposes?
Yes.
You remember what brand of ammunition you used?
I used,
We took it to the mouth.
it's okay. I used submitted ammunition, so I used Federal brand 223 Remington caliber fire or cartridges.
Okay, so you actually used 1 or 2 of the rounds that were submitted to you in the case?
I did. I used 3.
3. And did you have some laboratory samples that you used to test fire for comparison purposes for the 9mm and the 40 caliber?
I did not have a 9mm firearm or a 40 caliber firearm submitted to me to make test fires.
Okay, that's right, you just compared
The evidence to
the
each
evidence
other.
that you had.
Yes, sir.
And I take it when you went around to submit, you got around to submitting one of those to NIBIN, that you selected probably the best
Yes.
example of each of those?
Correct. The one I used as the standard in the case.
And you submitted to NIBIN, you submitted an example of the 40 caliber fired casings
Yes.
and the 9mm.
Yes.
And when did you submit to NIBIN?
That might be in my other packet. Would have been, and I don't have it in, I didn't see it in there, and if it's not in here, then I have it, I have it in the case file that's online at work. If you need that, maybe this is it. Yes, it's in here. They received it September 14th of 2017.
And then you mentioned you got an email from their system
Yes.
indicating that there had been an association.
This is
When
their
did you receive that
information.
email?
That was received December 13th of 2017.
That's the email.
Sure. Here, let me take this off.
And that email came from a guy named Michael Barr at DOJ,
Yes.
and they operate the database.
He's one of, I think there are several that are there.
What does NIBIN stand for? It's an acronym, right?
Yes, the National Integrated Ballistic Information Network.
So back on December 13th of 2017, you were given some Dallas County Police Department cases, case numbers that associated fire casings that you had that were submitted to you in this case to other Dallas Police Department cases. Is that right?
Dallas Police Department cases, yes.
And you were given case numbers, right?
Yes, they're agency case numbers, correct.
Do you know what offenses are represented by those case numbers? Have you learned that?
I do know
This 2017 case, that involved a homicide, didn't it?
I don't recall what those, well, hang on just a minute. That one I'm not sure about. The other ones I only have the DPD case number and the complainant name.
Well, you have your lab number,
Correct?
right?
Mhm.
And you have a complainant name associated with that particular lab.
Not this one. I don't see that one on my. I don't see that one in my report.
You see this one in the report?
Well, this
See this one?
all goes together.
Okay. Which case is that?
This is 5982. I don't see that one listed on in my report or in my analysis.
Okay, so
I see.
they actually advised, DOJ actually, through the NIBIN system, actually advised you of 4 Dallas County Police Department cases. Is that right?
Well, this one, these 3 are all the same. Yes. Are these different numbers? Okay, because these all hit on this one case. This is another case entirely. This doesn't have anything to do with, I sent off evidence from
Okay, you sent-
this
you
case
sent a
and
bulk
then-
transfer up to NIBIN,
yes,
and they let you know
that,
about several cases.
yes,
But
correct,
3 of those pertain to
to this,
the case we're talking about here today. Is that right?
correct, yes. Okay.
Dallas County Police Department has a NIBIN unit?
The Dallas Police Department has a 9 unit, yes.
And this particular email here has, I believe that's going to be detectives' names associated with these 3 cases, is that right?
Yes, I emailed Laura Fleming to let her know, as she works in the NIBIN unit at DPD, of the NIBIN associations by the ATF so that we could coordinate and get that evidence over to SWIFT's. And she sent that information.
This email here talks about Detective Garrick Whaley with the Sheriff's Office requesting a NIBIN lead confirmation. Is that right?
Lead.
Lead?
Mhm.
Okay. And which cases did that pertain to?
It pertains to this case that IFS 17-07795.
And that is dated December 14th of 2017?
Yes, I'm sorry.
And then you have some photocopies of the Dallas Police Department property tags that pertain to those other cases. Is that right?
Some of them, I believe, yes. Well, this one in particular is the medical examiner, or I'm not sure if it's the medical examiner or if it's the evidence registration. These are things from the autopsy of this case.
And there was an autopsy in that case because that involved a murder.
Correct.
This is a January 18th, 2018 email from you to a guy by the name of Buddy Evans.
Yes.
Do you know who Buddy Evans is?
He was one of the prosecutors or attorneys or investigator there associated with this case.
He's an investigator with the Dallas County Criminal District Attorney's Office. Is that right?
Or district attorney, yes, with the public integrity unit, yes.
Based upon this January 18th of 2018 email, would you do any additional trigger pull analysis on the rifle that you submitted?
I believe the only trigger pull evaluation I did is included in the initial firearms analysis packet of request 009.
So
So no.
Right.
You're welcome.
You testified that you did on your request number 10, you did I believe you said you did a microscopic examination of a hair?
Of hair, there was a small amount of hair. It wasn't just one hair.
And you received that hair from the Dallas County Medical Examiner?
Yes, it was submitted by the Dallas County Medical Examiner.
And I take it after you received the kniving report associating the other cases with some of the cartridge casings that were recovered in this case, have you followed up on that with the Dallas County or the Dallas Police Department?
Yes, they have a copy of this report for request 0019.
We pass the witness. Just a few follow-up questions, if I may, briefly.
Yeah, go ahead.
Ms. Francis, you were asked about a trigger pull evaluation on the 223 rifle.
Yes.
What's the purpose of that?
It's part of our mechanical evaluation of the firearm. It's to determine how much force is required to pull the trigger to cause the firearm to fire.
And the result, how's it measured? How's it reported out?
It's not reported. We don't report that information, but it is reported in pounds.
Okay, and do you have the results of this particular firearm?
Sure, just 1 second. It was, I do 2 trigger pull evaluations, and the first pull was 5.474 pounds in single action, and the second was 5.498 pounds in single action.
All right, thank you, ma'am. That's all I have, Judge. I'll pass the witness.
Sure.
Nothing further?
Maybe extend that. Thank you very much.
We would, however, ask to be allowed to photocopy some of the items from her file that we don't already have.
I'll grant you that request. Those documents that you have brought with you to court today, you guys can discuss during recess, and you can have copies of those things you brought with you to court today.
I can leave them with you. I can print more at my laboratory.
We'll take that up here just a little
Okay.
while on recess.
Judge, the state would also offer at this time state exhibit number 264, which is the range of fire analysis. Request 0010 dated June 22nd, 2017, as well as state exhibit number 265, which is the firearms analysis under request 0019, dated February 14, 2018, which Ms. Francis just testified to.
265.
265 was the firearms analysis request 0019.
What's the one right before that?
264 is request 0010. The range of fire analysis she testified with regards to the hair that was microscopically examined for gunpowder.
Any objection for purposes of this hearing?
Not for this hearing.
All right, submitted, both of those exhibits for purposes of this hearing.
The state would submit Ms. Francis as an expert in the field of firearms and tool examination.
Ms. Francis, you can go ahead and have a seat, step off the witness stand, please. Appreciate that. Be careful on your way down. Mr. Gill, any objections to that?
Not at this time.
So when you call her as a witness in front of the jury, it might be too late. We don't have any objections from her, very good. So anything else we need to take up with this witness? Accept her as an expert witness.
Yes, we would ask for a motion to limit, Your Honor, with regard to the second firearm analysis that was conducted by Ms. Francis, which you just testified to on request 0019. Her testimony is that there were several casings that were submitted to DPD. A Nibin lien came back, which tentatively matched these casings to other crime scenes, specifically 3 offenses that were being investigated by Dallas PD. She conducted an examination of those and determined there were 7 firearms that were related to those offenses. Specifically, that's a deadly conduct under DPD, for the record, DPD number 205636-2016. That involved a shooting, complainant DeMarcus Johnson. He was not cooperative with investigators, so no suspect was developed in that case. There was an aggravated assault under Dallas PD number 265123-2016, an aggravated assault. I'm sorry. Make sure I got my numbers correct. So that aggravated assault involved a complaint about the name of DeMarcus Johnson. He was not cooperative and no suspect was developed in that case. I misspoke. The prior one, the deadly conduct 205636-2016, was a deadly conduct, and by the time the police responded, there was no complainant. So there's no victim in that case. And finally, there was a homicide under DPD number 014-014-2017 that involved some suspects who were developed and arrests were made. The names of those defendants are Jaqueline, Jkeelin Williams, DeAndre Golston, D-E-A-U-N-D-R-E, last name Golston, G-H-O-S-T-O-N, and a third suspect by the name of Denaron, D-E-N-A-H-R-O-N, Russell, R-U-S-S-E-L-L, which was a robbery for a cell phone, and the complainant in that case was shot and killed. The complainant's name is Inocencio, I-N-O-C-E-N-C-I-O, Granados, Granados, with an offense date of January 18, 2017. With regards to the case at hand, Your Honor, there's been no evidence that links either the defendant, Mr. Oliver, or the 5 occupants of the 2014 Chevy Impala that links any of these individuals to any of those DPD cases. We would submit to the court that none of that is relevant to the case at bar. If the court finds that it is relevant, we would ask that the court exclude that under Rule 403 because the probative value would be outweighed by unfair prejudice, confusing the issues, and misleading the jury. So we would ask that any testimony not be elicited by the defense as it pertains to the second firearms analysis until such time as the defense can provide some evidence that there's a link to this particular case.
Thank you, Mr. Lewis. Mr. Gill, do you have any thoughts?
Yes, Your Honor. We're still trying to obtain documents from the Dallas County Criminal District Attorney's Office pertaining to these matters. Within the last couple of weeks, we finally received the beef sheets for these cases. And it would appear from the witness's testimony here that the Nibin Association was made some months ago, and we have been making these requests for quite a while to go back to those particular offenses. And just within, like I said, within the last couple of weeks, we finally got bare offense reports that pertain to these matters. We don't have any crime scene reports. We don't have any investigative follow-up. We don't have any photo spreads. We don't have any witness interviews or witness statements. We have nothing. So at this point, we don't know what these actually pertain to. And all we have are the representations of the DA's office at this point, which is quite frankly, more than what we have in the documents that we've been given. So we would request again that the court again grant this request for us and order the state to provide us these matters so we can further research this exculpatory and mitigating information.
May I respond? It was just stated that the information that I gave is not contained in the reports. All the information that I just stated for the record is contained in the reports that were tendered to the defense, Your Honor.
Is there anything else?
No, sir?
Okay. I'm going to grant the state's motion limiting and find that the confusing and misleading nature as the record stands before this court and this jury at this point, and we find it to not be relevant under 403. I'm going to exclude any testimony from state's 248, I believe, and Ms. Thomas regarding any extraneous offenses that might have been matched up to any of the shell casings from the NIVEN database. I'll give you a running objection to her testimony. Did I get that right, Mr. Lewis?
Just to clarify for the record, that's states 265, Your Honor.
265? What was 248?
248 was the first analysis that was conducted, request 0009 that pertained to the 223, the rifle.
I have a report here that says states 248 is dated February 14, 2018.
Can I see that, Your Honor?
Sure. Seems like we might have double marked that. If we did, just please clarify that for Ms. Williams.
Yes. That's correct, 248.
So you got
You're right.
248 and 265 on the same page?
Yeah, I happen to have two copies, but for the record, the correct exhibit number is going to be 265.
We want to do 248. And we'll admit it for purposes of this hearing. You want to withdraw?
Yes, let me withdraw State Exhibit 248 and submit 265, which is request 0019.
Sure.
We object to anything being withdrawn that's already been admitted. I mean, if they want to remark and offer something else, we can do that, but we object to anything being withdrawn.
Which one, that's fine. 265 and 248 are admitted. For record purposes, even though I guess they're the same thing.
Yes, Your Honor.
We'll go forward from here. You got another witness that you're about to call?
Yes, sir.
Dr. Stephen Lenfest, Your Honor.
Is this the medical exam?
Yes.
Can we get those straight real quick? I don't know what we just did.
265 and 248 are admitted for record purposes only.
And they're the same thing?
Yes.
And then you offered,
So the true exhibit is 265, is a mistake on my part.
okay, so the 265.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Thank you.
As you get your medical examiner ready, I think at some point you're going to be offering pictures, is that right, of the autopsy?
Yes, Your Honor.
Mr. Gill or Mr. Lane, have you all had an opportunity to review those pictures? And if so, are you going to have any objections? Because I'd like to take that up at this point.
I anticipate we will have some objections. We have seen black and white, we have black and white copies of those photographs, Judge.
Just last week, we sat down with the defense counsel and went over all of our exhibits. They have seen the color programs.
Let's get the doctor up here. We'll get,
But we don't have copies like we requested. We don't have color copies. What we received were PDF printouts of JPEGs, black and white. We've been requesting JPEG copies, but we don't have them.
both sides ready?
Yes, Your Honor.
Very good. Doctor, if you would please raise your right hand. Be sure the testimony you're about to give will be the truth. Please have a seat and respond to the questions. Mr. Lewis? Hi. We're going to start here, so let's do that at this point. Go ahead, Mr. Lewis.
Thank you, Your Honor. Morning, Doctor. If you could please state your name and spell it for the court reporter.
Could you pull that microphone around a little bit?
My name is Dr. Stephen Lenfest, Stephenlenfest.
And Dr. Lenfest, how are you currently employed, sir?
I work as a medical examiner at the Southwestern Institute of Forensic Sciences within the Dallas County Medical Examiner's Office.
And how long have you been a medical examiner with the Southwestern Institute of Forensic Sciences?
For a little over 3 years.
And could you please describe for the court your education, your training, your experience to be a medical examiner?
Yes, sir. I did 4 years of undergraduate college at the University of Florida in Gainesville, Florida. 4 years of medical school at the University of Florida. 4 years of anatomic and clinical pathology residency at Wake Forest Baptist Health Medical Center in Winston-Salem, North Carolina. 1 year of forensic pathology fellowship at the Dallas County Medical Examiner's Office. And I am board certified in anatomic, clinical, and forensic pathology and have a full license to practice medicine in the state of Texas.
And in your capacity as a medical examiner, do you conduct autopsies?
Yes, sir.
And have you conducted few or many autopsies?
Somewhere in the middle, probably.
Okay.
A little over 1,000.
I would say that'd be many. And have you testified in court as an expert witness in the field of forensic pathology, specifically in the field of autopsy?
Yes, sir.
Few or many times?
Few.
Okay. Now, taking you to the date of April 30, 2017, did you have the occasion to conduct an autopsy of Jordan Javon Edwards?
Yes, sir, I did.
And Doctor, can you just describe for the court the manner in which you conducted this autopsy?
Yes, sir. So typically what occurs is a body will be delivered to our office. The case is usually called in and reported to one of our investigators who generates a unique case number for the case, and then that will be attached to all photographs and other reports that are generated for that case. Come in the morning and divide the cases up among the medical examiners who are there. On this particular day, I got the case of Jordan Edwards. The body's received in a sealed body bag, which we would open. According to the narrative, indicated that the case was likely a homicide. So in that case, we would take photographs as the body's received with medical therapy clothing or whatever might be with the body. Then the body is usually cleaned after evidence is collected, if necessary. Additional photographs are taken and documentation and photographs of any injuries or abnormal findings or things of that nature. Also, in any case suspected to be a gunshot wound, x-rays would be performed, which were done in this case. So that would, and then once the body's clean, photographs are taken, a full external exam is done, documenting general characteristics of the decedent and, again, any injuries or abnormalities. After the external examination is completed, we would do an internal examination looking at all the organs of the chest and the abdomen and the brain.
Can you please describe for the court the evidence of injury that you saw on Jordan Edwards?
Yes, the decedent had an entrance rifle wound of the right side of the back of the skull or on the side of the skull. Bullet perforated through the right and left side hemispheres of the brain, and there was significant injury to the brain, blood vessels, and the skull itself.
Would someone have been able to survive this kind of injury, doctor?
No, in my opinion, this injury would be immediately incapacitating and non-survivable.
Were there any other injuries that you noted on the body of Jordan?
No, sir.
Are there any kind of internal illnesses, diseases that you saw that would have impacted Jordan and going on having a full and healthy life?
No, there was no significant natural disease identified.
Now, as part of your autopsy, do you also conduct toxicology?
Yes, sir. While we're doing the external examination, we would try to draw toxicology before we open the body to keep the samples in the best state for toxicology testing. We do that in all cases, and then if you can't get it from the outside, we would get it from the inside. In this case, we collected toxicology and ran the standard testing, and it was all negative.
Okay, no drugs or alcohol in Jordan's system?
No, sir.
So specifically with regards to your findings, can you tell us what they were?
So the findings were the rifle wound to the head, and that also was the cause of death, and the manner of death was ruled a homicide.
Did you seize any evidence from the autopsy?
Yes, in this case, we did a gunshot residue kit, which we would do on any case with gunshot wounds. We retained the clothing. We collected a blood standard, which is just a sample of blood that can be saved on a card. We collected hair standard and fingernail clippings, which are standard policy for homicides. He had bags on his hands, which we collected in case there was potential evidence there. We also collected the hair around the entrance wound that was shaved for possible gunshot residue analysis, and then collected the projectile and jacketing fragments that were recovered from within the skull.
Doctor, after you completed your autopsy, did you complete a report?
Yes, sir.
And you also mentioned earlier during the course of your autopsy, you take some photographs, is that right?
That's correct.
Commissioner Post, Commissioner Shaw.
Great. No signs of continuing commission.
I'm going to show you what's been marked as State Exhibit 258. You can tell the court what that is.
This is a copy of my autopsy report with one diagram showing the injury of the head on the head.
And you are the custodian of this record,
Yes, sir.
and you put it together at or at the time of your autopsy in this case.
That's correct.
I'm going to show you what's been marked also as State Exhibits 251 through 257. You can take a look at those and tell the court what those are.
So these are all photographs that I took at the time of the autopsy, and there's a photograph of the x-ray that was taken.
Now, these fair and accurate depictions of the body of Jordan Edwards at the time of your autopsy, as well as some of the physical evidence that you collected at that time.
Yes, they are.
Say what offers State Exhibits 258 and 251 through 257 for purposes of this hearing.
For purposes of this hearing, we don't have an objection to 258.
258 is admitted for purposes of this hearing.
And for purposes of this hearing, we don't have an objection to 255, 251, 252, 256, or 257. We do, however, object to 253 and 254. They are basically duplications of each other, Judge. I'll bring those up to you.
Thank you. I'm going to admit all of them for record purposes. And Mr. Lewis,
Yes, sir.
253 and 254 seem to be similar. You have also why one should be admitted in the hearing from here.
254, Your Honor, is a zoomed out perspective with the head, which is shaven. 253 is zoomed out perspective with the natural hair there. 254 is a zoomed in perspective with the head shaven, which shows a more clear view of the actual injury. So we would submit that they are different.
I'm going to overrule your objection. They're all admitted.
Just one final question. Dr. Lenfest, is your testimony today based upon your personal examination of the body of Jordan Edwards?
Yes, sir.
All right, thank you. That's the witness, Your Honor.
Mr. Gill?
Thank you. Morning, Doctor.
Good morning.
Did you bring some paperwork with you today?
I have a copy of the autopsy report.
Is that it?
This is the copy. This is some administrative stuff from my time here.
Some other stuff you're trying, not wasting time up here today?
It's just
Okay,
information.
so I'm trying to figure out what exactly I have in this packet I've been given by the DA's office. So this, what's marked down here in this bait stamp is 362 is actually page 1 of your report. Is that right?
Yes, it appears.
And from my examination of what was tendered here this morning, this is, what's been bait stamped as 363 is part of something else, because it's not yours, is it?
Yeah, that's correct. This 363, that's the second page of the investigative narrative. So this is page 2 of 3. There will be 3 pages of that, and then, so it's either, those 2 documents don't go together.
I think that's one. I think that's why someone thought it went behind 362, when it really doesn't, does it?
No.
And what is 364? Is it on page 3 of the investigatory report?
Yes, sir, it appears to be.
So we haven't seen page 1 of the investigatory report yet, have we?
No, not yet.
So what's the bait stamp 365 page, what's that?
So 365 is a cause of death report. It's just, basically it's a piece of paper that can be generated when the investigator clicks on, in our computer system, what would be the cause and manner of death. And it reflects what the death certificate says.
Is it a one-page document?
Yes, sir.
So we have all of that one, right?
Correct.
Is this page 1 of the, what's marked as 366 down here with the bait stamp, is that page 1 of the investigator's report?
Yes, sir.
And page, the bait stamp 367 is page 2 of your report?
Yes, sir, it is.
And then bait stamp 368 is page 3 of your report?
Correct.
And 369 is page 4 of your report?
Yes.
And 370 is page 5 of your report?
Yes, it is.
And 371 is page 6 of your report?
That's correct.
Is that right?
Yes, sir.
And 372 is the diagram you did?
Yes.
Is that right?
Yes, and that's a single document by itself.
Do you remember how many photographs you took?
I don't remember the exact number now.
Who would know?
I would know if I looked it up in the system. It would say.
Okay. Would you look it up in the system for me?
I can't do that from here.
Well, assuming you weren't here, if you were back in your office, could you do it?
Yes.
Okay. Would you mind doing that?
That would be fine.
Here's my email address down there.
Okay. No
You'll
problem.
just invite me how many photographs you took? I would appreciate it.
Including the x-ray, or do you just want the actual photographs I took?
Did you take, how many x-rays did you take?
Just one.
One. So then excluding the x-ray.
Okay.
So we got the x-ray. I think that was a one, but that's
Yeah.
a photocopy of it, isn't it?
Yes, sir.
And during autopsy, you all collected a gunshot residue kit.
Yes, sir.
You collected clothing that was submitted along with Mr. Jordan.
That's correct.
You collected a blood standard, a known blood standard.
Yes, sir.
You collected a known head hair standard from him.
Yes.
You collected fingernail clippings from right and left hands.
Yes, sir.
You collected bags from the hands.
Yes.
Were the bags provided by your office, or did Mr. Jordan come in with some bags on his hands?
The body was received with the bags on the hands, and I believe he was at the hospital, so they would have been placed there, not by someone at our office.
Did your office retain the bags from the hands?
We did.
addition to the head hair standard, there was some head hair collected from near the entrance wound for later possible gunshot residue analysis. Is that right?
That's correct.
And then during autopsy, you could collect a projectile and some jacket fragments.
Yes, sir.
And you photographed those also, didn't you?
I did.
And you conducted this autopsy on April 30th of 2017?
That's correct.
Did you receive an update at any point from your death investigator before you began the autopsy
Concerning what?
concerning the facts of this case, the circumstances?
So I would have received the investigative narrative that had been generated prior to the beginning of the case, yes.
Did you receive that in the paper format?
Yes,
Okay, so the death investigator prepares a report, you're able to review the report prior to beginning the autopsy.
that's correct.
Is that what you did in this case?
Yes, sir.
And is it the same investigatory report that you and I went over earlier, the 3-page report?
Yes, sir.
Do you recall who attended the autopsy?
Detective Billy Fetter of the Dallas County Sheriff's Department was present at the time of the autopsy.
Did you consult with Detective Fetter about the circumstances of the offense?
I don't remember specifics, but typically if there's law enforcement or child protective service or someone there, we would discuss the case or any other additional information they can provide.
While Detective Fetter was there, did he assist you with the collection of any evidence?
No,
Did he take any photographs?
no.
And what were your official findings on the case?
So my findings were that the cause of death was a rifle wound of the head and the manner of death was ruled a homicide.
Actually, in your conclusions on page 5 of your report, you say, quote, based on the case history and autopsy findings, it's my opinion that Jordan Javon Edwards, a 15-year-old male, died as a result of a rifle wound of the head.
Yes, sir, that's correct.
Did you get the information that the weapon involved was a rifle from Detective Fetter?
No, that information was in the investigative narrative, and the wound itself and the findings of the projectile are consistent with the rifle. It would have been determined without that information.
And when you refer to the case history, are you referring to your investigator's report?
Yes, sir, and just kind of a statement that I typically use, it can also include medical records or things of that nature.
We show you what's now been marked as Defendant's Exhibit number 15. It's a 3-page document. Is this what we've been referring to as the death investigator's report?
Yes, sir, it is. And I did want to point out, you were asking about what would have been available at the time of the autopsy. On this document now, in its current state, there have been additional pieces of information added that are dated later than that, just to clarify. At the time of the autopsy, it would have only had the original part.
Okay, so which parts have been added since the time that you reviewed the prior to autopsy?
So there's an additional supplement that was generated by Stephen Kurtz, who's the chief medical investigator at our office. concerning who is the legal next of kin to make funeral home arrangements. And then,
And that was added on May 2nd?
Correct.
Is that correct?
yes, sir. And then a supplement created by myself from May 5th stating that I spoke with Jason Hermes with the Dallas County DA's office, just discussing the preliminary autopsy findings and the evidence that was collected.
And both of those recitations appear on page 3 of that 3-page document, right?
That's correct.
Other than that, it's what you reviewed prior to autopsy.
Yes, sir.
You offer defendants 15.
That's my handwriting.
Wait a second.
Page 1 investigative report.
The purpose of this hearing, no objection, Your Honor.
Defense 15 is identity for purposes of this hearing.
Pass the witness.
No further questions, Your Honor.
Very good. Sir, you may stand. Thank you very much. So, Louis, you're submitting this witness as an expert?
Yes, Your Honor.
You good? Any response? He submitted the witness as an expert. Do you have any objections there, Chief?
No, sir.
Very good. Court will receive him as an expert witness. Give the opinions that he's offered this morning as well as the evidence subject to your objection. Mr. Stites?
One last expert, Judge, it's the use of force expert, so respectfully, we can have a 5-minute break first.
That sounds good. We'll get everybody back at,
Do we do 10 minutes?
how about 11 o'clock, Ms. We'll just do shut us up in 13 minutes. That's it. Court's in recess.
Judge, maybe these witnesses who testified be excused.